If you are on planet Earth and are watching this, there is a 1 in 22 chance that you've lived in the United States for at least 5 years, just like me. I was born in the U.S. and I've lived in the U.S. my entire life, and I'm currently 15 years old. If you live in America, then I want to tell you a few things about our country. The topic of the day will be misrepresentation in our government. The U.S. Declaration of Independence says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." I'm here to say that I have not seen much equality. For example, slavery wasn't abolished until 100 years after this document was even signed. These people weren't even considered citizens until 1865. They gained these former slaves gained the right to vote, but people made it almost impossible for them to actually hit the ballot boxes with things like the separate but equal policies. If it wasn't for another 100 years when the Civil Rights Movement took place, this separate but equal philosophy was banned as a rule as unconstitutional, and after almost 200 years of being suppressed, maybe even longer than that. A group of people was suppressed for 200 years after the basis of our government was even signed. Today, people are still fighting for their equality like this. The LGBT community is still fighting for their right to get married. In the United States, the public trust in the government is at an all-time low. Only 12% of Americans say that they are content in the government, compared to the 80% 50 years ago. 26% of people are even angry at the government. With all the heat in and towards Congress, it has been ranked the most unfavorable government agency, with only a 23% approval rating of the survey. Why is our government so hated? It's because no one knows what actually happens in our government, in my opinion. If you can vote, have you ever voted for someone and you didn't know why? Have you ever said your political opinion, but you didn't even know what you were saying? Well, a lot of people don't really do much research when it comes to opinions about the government. That's because among our favorite shows in television, there are a bunch of biased political advertisements come election time. A lot of them are to advertise people by bending the truth and sometimes even straight up lying to you. There's so many advertisements for one party and against another and back and forth that it's so difficult to find an unbiased source where voters can actually form an opinion for themselves. Since 1973, corporations have been allowed to dump money into their electronic advertisements. They can say whatever and whatever on TV whenever they want, as long as they have the money. This doesn't mean they have to tell the truth. The TV, the radio, and the internet are all clouded with biased advertising about the government. For example, during the Reagan administration, tobacco companies wanted to lower taxes for themselves. So they put out advertisements saying things like, "Big government is bad and will ruin your life," and "Government is creating over 1,000 agencies to spy on you." This commercial wasn't put out by people looking to shrink the government and more and less in the public interest. It was put out for the benefit of the tobacco companies. The 1,000 new agencies thing was just a complete and utter lie. But people believed it and probably voted in favor of this. Voters can be easily swayed with expensive and convincing advertisements like these. Voters can be swayed to do something that may have been not even in their interest without even realizing what they voted for. This causes misrepresentation in the government. When people were influenced by this tobacco company ad, many of them wouldn't even know that it was sponsored by the tobacco companies, so a lot of these voters could be against them. This causes the misrepresentation in Congress because the majority of people weren't represented accurately because they could have accidentally voted for things that they may have been against. In these types of situations, the needs of the few can outweigh the needs of the many, instead of the famous quote of the other way around. The framers of the Constitution designed this, so this is actually completely legal. It sounds a little edgy and sketchy, but not illegal, because corporations have freedom of speech, just like people do, because they're under the same Constitution. And the framers of the Constitution also designed it so people could fight back of these tobacco companies or whatever kind of corporations are flouting the internet right now, but people don't anymore. Why don't people fight back anymore and take back what's theirs? They have a right to, but not really the will. That's the gist in our country. If you have the will to do something, then you can do it. That goes back to the Declaration of Independence, the part where it says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator certain unalienable rights, such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." This pursuit of happiness is more taken advantage of by the bigger folks than the smaller folks. Even though the bigger folks and the smaller folks are in fact equal,